Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on how to prepare for your company's most important day. Think about it. Every single business owner will at some point exit their company. That's not a possibility, it's a flat-out certainty. So the only real question is, when that day comes for you, are you going to be ready, or are you going to be caught completely off guard?
And look, getting this moment right, it is everything. Because for the vast majority of owners, this number you see here, a staggering 80 to 90%, that's how much of their entire personal net worth is tied up in their business. This isn't just another payday. This is the culmination of your life's work. Okay, so let's start by kind of reframing what an exit actually is. Because while it's inevitable for every founder, it doesn't always mean what you think it means. It's not always about selling to the highest bidder. You actually have more options than you might realize.
In fact, there are really 5 main ways this can go down. The one we all think of first is selling to a third party. You know, a competitor, some individual, maybe a private equity firm. But you could also pass the business on to your family. A third option, which is really cool, is selling or even giving it to your employees, usually through something called an ESOP. Then there's what's called a structured dissolution, which is just a fancy way of saying you wind the business down in a planned, orderly way to get the assets out. And finally, you can exit operationally. This means you hire a CEO to run the day-to-day, and you become a passive investor. The whole point here is that when you prepare, you get the power to choose the path that's right for you.
But here's the thing. No matter which path you even think about choosing, it all comes down to one single question. What is your business actually worth? So let's break down the surprisingly simple formula that every single buyer on the planet uses to figure that out.
The starting point for pretty much any valuation is this term you hear thrown around, EBITDA. Now, I know it sounds like a bunch of alphabet soup, but all it really stands for is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Just think of it as a way to measure the pure, core profitability of a business. It lets you compare an apple orchard to a software company on a level playing field.
And the actual formula, it's almost shockingly simple. It's just your EBITDA, that core profit number, times something called a multiple. That's it. But trust me, the secret to a truly life-changing exit is knowing how to influence both sides of this equation.
So that multiple can swing wildly depending on your industry and, more importantly, how well your business is run. Let's make this real. Take restaurants, for example. A chaotic, poorly run place might only sell for about 1.3 times its earnings, but a smooth, systemized, highly profitable restaurant, wow, it could go for a multiple of 8x or even more. I mean, that is a life-changing difference in the final payout, and it all boils down to how well you prepare.
So the big question is, how do you get from being that 1.3x business to that 8x business? Well, it comes down to the 3 core pillars of preparation. This is your blueprint. This is what you can start working on today to maximize the value of your business. First, you've got to choose your ideal exit option as early as possible. This one decision is going to shape every other strategy, especially when it comes to taxes. Second, you have to become obsessed with boosting your profitability. Remember that formula? Every single dollar you add to your EBITDA gets magnified in that final sale price. And third, and honestly, this might be the toughest one for most founders, you have to systematically make yourself irrelevant. You have to build a business that can thrive without you. Why? Because a potential buyer sees a company that completely depends on its owner as a massive, massive risk.
Now, building a valuable business, that's one thing. But surviving the sheer psychology of the deal, that's a whole other ballgame. I want to walk you through a devious but really common trap that professional buyers use to take advantage of unprepared owners.
This quote from an owner who lived through it, man, it just says it all. A huge, exciting offer lands on his desk, and in his words, "They got me salivating. I took my eye off the ball." That immediate emotional reaction, that's exactly what the buyer is counting on.
So here's how this high-ball, low-ball trap works. First, they hit you with a massive, flattering offer that gets you emotionally hooked on the idea of selling. Then, they lock you down with an exclusive letter of intent, which means you can't talk to any other potential buyers. Next, they just drag it out. They stretch the due diligence process for months and months, asking for endless documents, wearing you down. By the time they come back, maybe a year and a half later, your business has probably slipped because you've been distracted and you are just exhausted. And that's when they drop the bomb. A new, tiny, lowball offer, because they know you feel trapped and have no other choice.
So how do you defend yourself against something like that? Well, your only real defense is preparation.
It's what lets you walk into that room with confidence. It's what allows you to see your exit not just as a financial transaction, but as the final, defining chapter of your legacy.
In that legacy, it's not just about what ends up in your bank account. I absolutely love this quote from a veteran M&A expert. He said, "If you're not going to exit well for yourself, do it for them, your customers, your employees, your community. This is the burden of ownership."
Most entrepreneurs get into business for one simple reason: freedom. The freedom to build something, to call the shots, to control their own destiny. So the ultimate question is, will you plan your exit to actually secure that freedom for good? The preparation for that day starts right now.